Hello and welcome. Today I bring you news of the Wizards of the Coast crossover with Lord of the Rings, and something seems to be amiss. Well, this is an anticipated set from Wizards of the Coast. A lot of people are really hoping for the best out of this set and hopes that Wizards of the Coast can nail everything on the card front, on everything that we've seen with Lord of the Rings. People want the actual telling of Lord of the Rings in a Magic the Gathering set. But there's controversy. Like with all things with Wizard of the Coast, they've got to throw a wrench into the situation. And what are we talking about? Well, it has to come down to this giant piece of art, and one thing out of there is just not the same. I bring up this article from Bounding into Comics because it's one of the few that are out there, and when I first read it, I was like, there's no way this is right. There's no way that this is going to be this way. Aragorn is depicted here as having short hair, and one of the tellings of the description of Aragorn is he has scruffy hair, so long down to his neck, kind of gray-like and all this other things. And in this particular one, it shows him with short hair. Well, this isn't that big of a deal, but there's a lot of questions here at what we're seeing. Now, when I first saw this, I was like, okay, maybe the artist sat there and he's taking the flame off the sword and trying to add lighting, and that's why we're seeing what looks like darkened skin coloring of Aragorn. But the more I looked into this, the less it became hard to ignore that fact that they turned and actually race swapped Aragorn in the Lord of the Rings Wizards of the Coast set. This is really disheartening because Aragorn is described as is a paled-faced 6'6" human being of Britain style mythology and of that making. So why in the world would you turn around and completely change the outcome or completely change the description of Tolkien's work? Like, this is strictly Tolkien's work, and they're no longer honoring the lore and the originality of Tolkien's work. Why? Because it's all about where does it say it here? Modern day identity politics, the usual trope that continues to go on with everything today. Everything has to be thrown a wrench in it. You cannot have people of normal descent or normal whatever you want to call it. You can't have things just naturally happen the way they once were. You have to pervert and change the past. You have to turn around and change it, because otherwise you're doing a disservice to mankind. I don't get this politics. I don't get why this type of thing has to continue going forward. Now, there's a lot of talk with the Amazon Prime, with the way Sauron's coming out, and how Sauron really doesn't look like he would be a powerful figure in that sense. There's other pictures going out there where Sauron looks like he's got breasts for a male character. It looks very strange in that sense. But that's a different story. This is now Lord of the Rings through Wizards of the Coast eye, and they've got to do it for the diversity matters, which is just, that's not what this is. You're putting together two IPs and making it greater. Why pervert the two IPs? Why bother? The one thing that drew people to Wizards of the Coast and to Magic the Gathering was it was based off history. It was based off world wars originally with legends, and then it continued, and it's always foreshadowed or always followed along with modern day aspects, retelling of stories. They did the Eldraine, which was like a retelling of a lot of the fairy tales Grimm. They've done this throughout the history of Magic the Gathering, and it just continues. Recently we had Neon Dynasty, which was like a Japanese style ninja cyberpunkish world, where a lot of people like the idea of that, but once again, it's Wizards of the Coast retelling the way of modern age and trying to tell it with shifting the narrative or shifting the agenda driven politics in this stuff, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. I don't see the point in trying to do that, especially when they talk about Tolkien's work. So however, upon the reveal of the cards depicting the latter event, fans were quick to note as a significant divergent from Tolkien's original writings, namely that rather than having a shaggy head of dark hair flecked with gray and a pale stern face, this is direct quotes from Tolkien, as depicted in the books, Wizards claims to foreshadow even more so closely. The last chieftain of the Dundons of the North was depicted as a short-haired black man. To back this up, like I said, I really thought maybe this was the artist's rendition of the way the coloring shaded across the landscape, because he's holding a flame sword. So I was like, okay, so maybe it's shading, but then you can't ignore that he doesn't have the long gray hair or the long shaggy hair. You can't ignore that. And why does it come down to this? So one of the things I did here was I went and looked up the artist, Tyler Jacobson, and I had to look closely at how he depicts things in the past, because I wasn't sold that this was them race swapping this situation. I wasn't sold completely at all on this. But then it was pointed out to me that there's a few people here, the other people, his other comrades there, they are more towards the of a whiter nature in depiction of skin color, and Aragon obviously does not have that. So in everything, I had to look it up and figure out who this was. Now, the one thing I want to pay close attention here is Tyler Jacobson, S-E-N, and then Tyler Jacobson, right? I have to ask, did they screw up the names? Did Wizards of the Coast also create a typo on their big art in this sense? So the art of Tyler Jacobson, drawing dragons, all these things. Who is he? He came out of San Francisco. He works for Wizards of the Coast. So this is the same artist. And Tyler Jacobson here, Tyler Jacobson. So they misspelt his name, first off, on the big artwork. They misspelt his name. Like that's pretty telling where you're going to go. So yes, he works for Wizards of the Coast. He's done Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, Paizo Publishing, which is also Pathfinder. And so there's been a lot of things in that. And I was like, okay, let me look into the artist. Who is the artist here? I don't believe that this is the case. Okay, these, I'm recognizing these right off the back. We got a Jace, we got guy from Kaladesh, I can't remember his name. I believe that's Avacyn. So we've got a lot. This is vindicative of the D&D books there. Vampire, I believe this is a murder card. So yeah, lots of Wizards of the Coast stuff. So yeah, this, I've got the correct guy here. Dritz there, which is looking also epic there. That's pretty cool, right? Now, what else has he done, right? Oh, Black Jesus? Wait. This is another sort of questionable thing out there. You know, this apparently was a very funny thing. It was Adult Swim. It was a funny mock-up of it, and that's cool. Is that Stephen King? You know, Stephen King, who has absolutely insane takes when it comes to Twitter. His takes have become of legend. That's how crazy they are. So, okay, I'm getting a little bit more of a sense here that this was actually on purpose, and that's why I sat there and I couldn't quite pinpoint it. And then you get Wizards of the Coast saying change it up. You get the artist that seems to change things up for a lot of things. So I'm now pretty sold that this was a complete swap of the race of Aragorn, which if this was the other way around, if this was completely the other way around, people would be saying you whitewashed the character, you completely altered the character for what it was, and this is the case. The other side of the coin is, was this another edition of blackface? I'm not entirely sure. I don't know where I should land on all of this. Do I really care? Is this a product I was going to buy anyway? Not really. I've been so disenfranchised from Lord of the Rings, especially with the stuff of the Rings of Power, that I don't want anything to do with it anymore, because this is another IP that we've seen people time and time and time again pick up, rewrite it, and just throw it out there and say, this is what it is now. If you don't like it, you're a bigot. If you don't like it, then you can go to hell. And that's the way things are, and that's absolutely a travesty, and does a disservice to the original workings of Tolkien. Tolkien wrote it in such a way that it was supposed to be taken in that way. And a lot of people have put words in his mouth throughout the years and history of it, and it's a real shame to see that this is. Hopefully, Tyler Jacobson, they fixed your name on the art, because it's kind of ridiculous that it's also wrong, but at the same time, it's hard to ignore that they've changed Aragon from a British style or a European style character and completely changed who he was in the books, especially. And it's really hard to ignore when they say pale skinned face. Thanks for watching. This is Proud Canadian Phoenix signing off. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You know what, leave your comments down below. This isn't one of those topics I like covering, especially when it's very tough to go through, because once again, this is a Wizards of the Coast product where they're intentionally changing the history of the product. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.